was really struggling to title this video. So what I wanted to title this video is, what do you think of AEW's Continental Classic so far? But I've also got to get AEW Collision December 2nd, 2023
Yeah, it's a long
review
title.
bar WrestleTalk podcast, because SEO and algorithms and all that
All of it, yeah.
stuff. So it turns out this bit was far too long.
Right.
So I then had to just shrink it down to what essentially people just do on Twitter when they just go, thoughts at Dave Meltzer, WON, thoughts at Jim Cornette, thoughts at Sean Rossap.
Would you believe all three of them are here tonight?
So, thoughts on AEW's Continental Classic so far? Let us know in the live chat. Let us know in the comments down below. I'm Luco in DAD, joined by the Professor of the Truth, your Gem That Champion, Dan Layton. This is the AEW Collision WrestleTalk podcast review. Please do press the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. If you are watching live, join the live conversation or get your thoughts and statements read out on the air by going to WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amounts 1 week before AEW head back to Canada and have to use Canadian dollars.
I have a new nickname as well.
Do you know?
Yeah, the hottest free agent in all of pro wrestling. I was on Monday Night Raw, I was on Friday Night SmackDown, and I was also on Collision in a brilliant match against Vikingo. So, you know, I'm all over the place. I'm all over television.
Well, I meant to get the image up, but behind the commentary desk,
I saw it, yeah.
someone had just had, and it was the most perfect sign I've ever seen, because they just ripped off a bit of the cardboard box that they just got their sous chef order in, and just held it up, and it just says WrestleTalk #1.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Look, I love the commitment to creativity in the face of it all.
I love it. It wasn't Jam That Jam.
No.
It wasn't the Professor.
No.
It was just WrestleTalk #1.
There it is.
And that is my #1 fan of the day. So thank you if you are watching. You are very much appreciated here. But let's talk about, speaking of things that aren't being appreciated in some corners of the internet, let's talk about the AEW Continental Classic.
What are you referencing?
That thing I was just saying. I said he was my appreciated. Like, I appreciate his work.
God, I understood. I thought you were.
And I use that to...
It was a reach, but I'm glad you did it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, like it's... I thought this was quite an interesting topic, because I watched Collision this morning. I didn't see it over the weekend. So what I instead saw was a lot of the discourse around the Continental Classic from Saturday's airing.
Always a fun time.
Always a fun time. Should really get off that platform. I'm doing most. I've deleted the shortcut to it on my bookmarks.
I've deleted the bookmark. I've deleted it off my phone. But that doesn't stop me typing it.
Oh, maybe I should do that now while we're
yeah.
on air.
It's an interesting place, because for me, I've found it to be this like this factory for the most like dull, like bad faith takes, right?
Yeah. So, for example, the two takes I have seen from the Continental Classic and sort of the two overarching feelings from this episode of Collision was, wow, that Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston match was fantastic. As someone said in the live chat there, what did you expect his return match to be anything other than A++++, because it's Bryan Danielson and he's awesome. So is Eddie Kingston. And the other thing was, this scoring system's hard to follow.
Yeah, to that point, I saw someone post the scoring card, and then all I saw in the comments were either people saying this is too hard to follow, or if you think this is too hard to follow, you should stop watching television, like kind of thing. Yeah. So it was that
a damning indictment of the American school system,
and also the fighting element, the negativity element. Like, I think this tournament's brilliant. I love it. I'm so in. I love I said to you upstairs in the office, there was a moment where I paused the bracket to like do tournament maths, like when I'm staring at my World Cup wall chart. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like, right, well, if Slovenia need to get a draw to get through, but
if they do that, they'll only end up in second place, which means they're going to go through, and they'll probably get France then.
And then there's a goal difference situation you got to think about, because so right now in the Champions League, Man United can still get through, but what we need to happen is we need to beat Bayern Munich, and we need to hope that the other two draw. And it's this nonsense bit of bracketology that you're clinging to, but that's why this kind of tournament format works. It's what makes it so compelling. Like within this match with Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson, I found there was something that I actually think they didn't press at all, and they should have pressed even harder. But you're looking at it like Kingston needs to get a win here. Like, it adds stakes to it because of the point system.
Yeah.
A draw could be everything, or it could be awful. Like, this is what makes the G1. It's not a new format. G1 TNA did with the World Title Series. Like, it just is an effective tool. And if you're having trouble working out the bracket, I do think maybe AEW could put a bit of bracketology on the show. Do you remember the Cruiserweight Classic?
Yes.
And they did like a bracketology show that was just kind of a bit whatever. I was really excited for that show because I liked the idea of...
Like a bracket.
Yeah, I like a bracket. I like the conversation. There could be a section on the show where they have like Renee and RJ just there with a board being like, well, what happens with this match is crucial because...
Kind of what WWE do with the bump, right? Like, there's this sort of like in kayfabe analysis show.
Yeah.
And they do things like that on YouTube. Like when they did the announcement of the brackets and like who was in the Gold League and who was in the Blue League. I watched that live stream. I don't watch a lot of AEW's live stream. I don't watch their Control Center or whatever it is they have on before shows. But I did watch that because I was actually really interested to see who was going to be in the C2 as fans have named it. So I was actually really excited about it. So I would also enjoy something like that. I said to you, I was like, we are probably a week away. Really, I would say we're a week away from, on a Saturday, Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer having unbroken 20-minute diatribes about the scoring system and about who needs to get what points in order to qualify for the next stages.
And I cannot understand if you have an argument that that's too confusing. I don't think it is, nor do I think it needs to be. It's all in the presentation. It's all in how they put it across. For me, it's incredibly compelling. And I love the format. I love the fact that it's one of those things of AEW loves a heatless banger, right? It's their favorite thing in the world. But if you put a round robin tournament in, the heat is in the tournament. It's not in the match combinations. Like, if you'd have sat me down and said, are you looking forward to seeing Jay White versus Jay Lethal? I'd probably gone, sure. But when there's tournament stakes and it's like Jay White's only got 3 points, he's going to need it.
Lethal is desperate for a win at this point.
You know, I'll watch it. Yeah. I'll watch it. Like, it adds an extra level of heat without needing to do the build. And that's what Tony Khan needs, as a booker. And
it's amazing as well because, like, it's people... If you've only ever really sort of watched American Western wrestling, and you haven't watched a G1 or a Best of the Super Juniors or something like that, you might look at... Because I saw some people be like, oh, man, Jay White buried because he's only got 3 points in the tournament so far. I was like, well, he's lost once. But also, in a tournament like this, people lose. But it's about the stories you tell in that tournament. For example, Eddie Kingston is now 0-2 in this tournament. He's had 2 matches and is on 0 points, which means he has now got to win his next 3 matches if he wants to make it to the final, but also retain his titles and become that modern day Triple Crown champion, which is why he wanted to do this. Like, he wanted to be part of this tournament so he could be the modern day Triple Crown champion. This is his... So now we have got the underdog story of, I've lost my first 2 matches, so I am desperately going to be... And like in those... Andrade, and he's got Claudio.
Claudio has got nothing.
Claudio's got 3 because Claudio got a win last week. So Claudio's on 3 points.
On the bracket, he said he had 0.
I'm pretty sure Claudio's got 3 points.
I'll check it, but you're probably right.
I think Claudio's got 3. I think Claudio's got 3, and Brody had 3.
Right.
It was like, that match was like the first of who's going to get to the 6-point mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's this desperation. And I do think, like, on commentary, they were saying at the start of this that he does need a win. Like, if anything, because he lost last week.
You're right.
Because he lost last week, he really needs to win this week. And he actually came down fairly close to the wire. It was about sort of 16 or so minutes in. Like, they made the 5-minute, only 5 minutes remaining call. Love that, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Love that they did it on Dynamite as well. That they did the 5 minutes remaining call, then had to finish a couple of minutes later. Because the 5-minute call is almost programming your brain to be like, oh, it's a draw. But by having that go to a finish, by having this one go to a finish, the draw that they eventually do in the tournament is going to feel more of a surprise because you're not pre-programmed to think the 5-minute call means draw is coming.
There's a match from this year's G1, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is in this moment, and that's really frustrating, but that went to, I think, like 19 minutes and 58 seconds. And it was the 5 minutes remaining, 3 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining. And every single time that call, you lean forward a little bit more because you're like, are you going to get it done? Are you gonna, and that's in the wrestling plotting. That's in the telling the story. Because that could be dull af. Like, if they don't do the match right, there's a way that can be really dull. So if you plot it perfectly, it turns into the most gripping thing in the world. In something that, like, wins and losses don't matter is the comedy refrain we have. In this tournament, a loss isn't the end of the world as long as you don't have too many of them. And that's something that I think that when we're talking about maybe them having a bracketology show and having something to really sell the stakes of this, I really think they missed a trick at the end of this Danielson-Kingston match, because they didn't mention at all that this is dire for Kingston. That he has said in his a combination of moxie and self-belief in the most honorable way. He said, what we love about Eddie, those of you who don't hate Eddie Kingston, one of the things people love about Eddie Kingston is that he's the underdog. He's the one who was never meant to be the big star kind of thing. And then sort of by just scrappiness and passion, made it to the big stage in the way that he has, especially this year. That's why we loved seeing him in the G1. And in that kind of that swathe of I back myself so hard, I'm going to put both my titles on the line in this tournament. Well, you've lost twice, mate.
Lost for your first 2 matches.
That's devastating.
Yeah.
That is the psychology of that, the mental anguish of that. Maybe Kingston just can't cut it in this tournament, in this company. Like that's all part of it, right?
Yeah.
So they should be doubling down on that and making it clear that he still can win this. It's not over for Kingston, but my God, he's got to bend over backwards and find a way to do it. And they didn't do that. I think that was a bit of a shame.
I think I'd agree with that, actually. Yeah, I think the commentary could have put over that more. Like, I think Kingston, one of the other things I've really loved about the C2, as fans call it. The reason
Is anyone calling it that?
So that's what it's referred to online, is at the C2. Because I was talking to... Oh, sorry.
The Classic is much cooler.
Sorry, 1 second. I was talking to Claudio Castagnoli the other day. Just going to pick up that name that I dropped. I was talking to when I interviewed Claudio the other day. Like Adam Whitney was setting up the cameras and stuff, so we were just general chit chatting and stuff. We were mostly talking about suits and the fact that he was dressed really sharply and I was wearing plaid. And I said like, oh, when are you going back? And he said, oh, I'm flying back on Thursday. And I said, because you're not on Dynamite. He goes, no, I'm in the C2 on Saturday.
Oh, he called it the C2.
And he just went, I love that name.
Okay, well, I got my face.
Yeah, he's like, I love that name. And he's like, and from what I can gather, and he said this in the interview as well, he loves being part of this tournament. He loves this because as a wrestler, like trying to map out the story that you're telling, and you've now got 12 guys that are all trying to tell various different stories. On the Gold League, you've got both Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe with 0 points. So, they are, you're not everyone. You need to have your losers within.
Not
the
everyone's
tournament
going to go through
because everyone needs to take L so that you can get wins to the other people. That's the role that Lethal and Briscoe play within this. But Briscoe's a really interesting one because you can get some fun wins for Briscoe, some upset wins for Briscoe. I wouldn't be surprised if Jay Lethal beats Jay White this week, because that is the upset victory in there. It's like, can you believe that the guy who lost his first 2 just beat Jay White?
Or holds him to a draw or something like that. And then what does that do to Jay White's chances?
Because Jay White's already starting to mentally break down on this because he went in thinking, I'm a G1 veteran.
Yeah.
Like, I've done this a lot.
Yeah.
I should be the guy that's controlling this. And I got beat by Swerve on Wednesday.
And then sorry to cut you off.
You go.
But you look at that and it's like Mark Briscoe had that match with Roosh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right? And it's like that's what I mean by heatless bangers, but the heat of it comes from the tournament thing, and it doesn't actually matter that Mark Briscoe lost that because it was so good. And does it make you think less of Mark Briscoe? It's a tournament. It's like, sorry you didn't get through. This the World Cup analogy is where I go with it, because sorry you didn't get through. Does it mean that you're not good enough? No, it just means that this other person beat you on the day. Like, that's why we always love it when, like, I remember when South Korea went through over Germany. I think they won like 3-0, and Germany were the world champions. It doesn't mean that Germany are any less good. It's a capitulation for Germany, but it is one of those things of like, who saw that coming? And then by the time the next tournament rolls around, you're like, well, it's Germany. They're going to have a huge chance. It's a really fascinating little device, and the way I like to consume wrestling, I can't help it, right? I love to think about the plotting, and I love to think about what went on behind the scenes and whether or not Tony Khan has a board where he's got all 12 of these people with little pictures, and he's like, okay, well, this is the journey that I want this person to go through, and this is the journey I want this person to go through, so I need this person here in this moment. Or is he booking at the seats of his pants, or did he have I want this one story to go through and the rest of it can kind of find its place and I'll work with the wrestlers to find it. I love the complexity of this, and I see the people sort of like doing the maths woman gif and I'm like, it's not as hard as it sounds.
No, Will Washington.
When it gets to the next part, like when it gets to the who moves on, that's where they'll need to just explain it, need to just really double down and clarify
the winners
it.
of the Blue League.
Yeah.
And then they'll face off to get into the World's End match.
Yeah.
Which is why, Eddie still has a chance to win this, because he's just got to win his next 3 matches, which, as I said, like the Daniel Garcia one probably feels like that's the easier win for him to get. But Andrade is going to be a tough challenge for him. And they are building Brody King like an absolute monster in this tournament.
And hell, his next match is with Claudio.
Yeah.
Who he's had these battles with all year. Who also wants to have a win.
Yeah.
Like that there's your drama. Like, this is the thing. And like if he manages to pull it back, that's a little story in there as well. Like I don't know, it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the boards now and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah. It's awesome, right?
Yeah, it's just a great format.
So I love the way that this is laid up. I love the way that it's laid out, and I'm really, really enjoying I think Claudio beat him last week. Yeah, Claudio beat him last week.
Beat
Kingston.
Did he?
Yeah, I think that's where Claudio got his 3 points from.
What's wrong with me? No, wait. No, Kingston has done King and Danielson.
Oh, he got his 3 points. He got his 3 points on Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the next match.
Yes,
is Claudio and
Must
Kingston.
be, yeah. He's got Kingston. Because Kingston's got Claudio. He's got
Andrade, Claudio, and Garcia.
Oh,
the
Brody
reason that
King's
took me
already beaten him, because Brody King beat him last week. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And
then the other one is looking at this. Danielson's got 4 matches.
Yeah,
and
because
because
his first match now.
He's only just had his first match, so he's at a disadvantage because he's got to do 4 in a quick succession, and he's been injured 5 minutes ago. I saw someone comment something like he could wrestle a match with like 1 arm and still pull on a 5-star show, and I'm like, I don't want to see that. Like, please look after yourself, but also, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's part of it. And like, I know there was a second there where I can almost hear bad faith people on Reddit like taking clippers going, "Oh no, but wait, he's got a good." That's because the font was small. But that's part of the fun of it is the looking and then going like, but if this person beats this person, if this person beats this person. It's just fun.
Yeah.
What was Will Washington's tweet you were going to say? Because I saw it.
Oh yeah, because there was all of this big discussion about like the scoring system's too hard to follow because it is this grid format to show a round robin tournament of who is here, who have they faced, and what points they've accrued. And Will Washington, he does work for AEW. His whole point was like, look, if you find this hard to understand, just look at the column on the far end because that's got the total points that they've earned.
Yeah,
that tells you what you need to know.
Yeah,
like this, Brody King has got 6 points. Claudio has 3 points. Andrade has 3 points.
Also, I've just realized in this moment, and I hate to do our trope, and they hate it when we do this, but you Americans have no place to be talking about confusing sports. If I have to have one more fight with Tempest about the playoff finals not being the playoff finals, and actually there's a second final, which is like, I'll have a conniption.
Yeah. This is, I mean, do you want to...
This is very simple.
Do you want to just quickly tell the story? Because it is funny.
I think we've done it before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Basically, I did a series, and in it, I spoke about the Denver Nuggets. The time WWE had to move from Denver because the Denver Nuggets got through to the playoff final. And I said they got through to the playoff final, but then... Tempest was like, well, they didn't get through to the playoff final. I'm like, well, hang on, it says here they got through to... No, they got through to the Western Conference final, which means that they win
the Western Conference playoff final.
The Western Conference playoff final, so I would argue it's playoff final. But he was like, well, if you say playoff final, no one's going to... That's not what it means. I'm like, well, it does mean that because it says Western Conference playoff final. And then it's like, well, if they win that final, they get through to the final, which doesn't... That's a semi-final. And I understand that there's the Western Conference... and the final of the Western Conference, which then leads to the final, but if that's the final, then that's the final. So this is comparatively very simple. And yeah, if you don't care about... I liked pausing it and thinking about all the different combinations. If you just want to find out who's currently winning, well, tell you what, in the Blue League right now, Brody King is winning. He's got 6 points, won both of his matches. Danielson's only got 3, but he also has 4. He's got a game in hand, as we say in football, kind of thing. Over on the Gold League, you've got both Mox and Strickland... there's a shocker. Have both got their 6 points. Roosh has had a great one, but he also lost to Jay White. So, what does that do for Jay White? If he's on a momentum, if he loses another one, that could throw his whole tournament off. All of that. It's just so much fun. It's just so much fun.
I also, I mean, we'll get into the main show in a moment, but I loved this match between Kingston and Danielson. Because like I loved the match that they had on Rampage in 2021. It was one of my favorite matches of the year. And fun fact, everyone, that was the match that was used to springboard into the Punk feud. Because it was the loss to the Danielson thing where Kingston stormed backstage and got interrupted Punk's promo time. And that's what led to their 2-week rivalry they had that paid off at Full Gear. Still one of my favorite AEW matches of all time. So we're even further then, when Danielson won this at the end and he pulled up that sign that said Kingston is a bum.
I didn't see what it said.
Yeah.
Is that what it said?
Because that's what Punk's line was.
Right.
In their promo was, Kingston, Eddie, you're a bum.
Oh, that is a bit of spice, isn't it, when you think about this week?
Exactly, right? Danielson was the guy who was heading up the disciplinary committee and all this sort of stuff.
Brian Danielson, sorry, I keep doing that, was personally the one who kicked CM Punk in the bum on the way out the door. That's what definitely happened.
Someone here has said, now explain the FA Cup.
The FA Cup is so easy.
That's even easier.
It's so easy. Everyone who is a registered member of the Football Association, a registered club, gets to fight. And if you win your match, you go through to the next round. If you lose your match, you go around. And then as you go through, so it's not like Manchester United playing like the person who's currently in 7th on the Isthmian South Premier League, somewhere down in the 9th period.
The Staplehurst Monarchs.
Right, no, sure. Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Right, cool. So it's not that. Right at the beginning, the bigger teams with more money and more finances get added in later on. But it could well be that those two face each other when Man United come in, and that's the beauty of the cup. But it's a very simple knockout tournament.
Yeah.
Don't come at me with this. The American sports, I enjoy my basketball, I like my baseball, I like my hockey, I like them all. All the sports themselves are great. But you guys bend over backwards. Also, by the way, this is all silly. This is all in good fun. But you bend over backwards to explain the complicated rules like it's like, what's that, in Friends, when Joey's like bamboozled, it's like, it's such a simple game. You go, the monkey had the cow chance. You pull the golden monkey, and if you bam, you're in Paradise Bond. It's so complicated. God love you. America, fuck yeah. Sorry, I swore.
I only brought that up because that's the second time where we've talked about confusing American sports, and we're like, well, explain the FA Cup. Then I was like, that's the easiest one to do.
Yeah, there's a more complicated version.
There's effectively a qualifying round.
Yeah.
And if you get out of that qualifying round, you get into the FA Cup, and then it's just a knockout tournament.
It's called the first round proper.
Yeah.
We're already through that. We're on the third round.
But anyway, this match was absolutely awesome. These two just slapped the absolute piss out of each other.
They really did.
Battered each other, and it was a proper this getting over what this tournament means. Danielson loves this sort of thing because Danielson loves to wrestle. He loves to fight. He's part of the Blackpool Combat Club. Their whole ethos is slapping the piss out of each other. But Kingston's going in there with that desperation mindset of, okay, lost my first match. Definitely need to get a win here. Also, I don't particularly like Danielson, so I kind of want to show him. He also beat me in 2021. This is only our second match we've had in AEW. I want to show that I can beat him. And he made it far. He made it really far in this. He got to about 17 minutes, but just did not have enough. And Danielson more or less hit the knee plus out of nowhere, the Psycho knee, to get the win. I just thought they told such a fun story in this. And Kingston Kingston cut this fabulous promo. Because I was going to mention this earlier. The other thing I really love about the C2 is the promo work we're getting from everyone. Because everyone's doing pre-match promos and post-match promos. So they had a video package to show you what happened on the Gold League on Wednesday. And just the promo work from everyone involved in that, particularly Jay White and Moxley, getting over this idea. So now when they posted this video up on social media, but you get to Dynamite, you play that promo. Kingston tells you everything you need to know about his next match in the tournament.
There was a moment in this match where Kingston was just kicking Bryan in the face.
Yeah.
And I was clenching because I was like, that is a still healing broken orbital bone. And that's why this line about wrestling with no limbs, I'm like, please don't let it be the land of the broken bones. God, look, we're so close to the end of your little retirement run, and yet we're so far away from it.
As Nigel McGuinness said of him, he's got the eye of the tiger and the body of an OAP.
Can I, speaking of Nigel McGuinness, what is a clam digger?
It's a phrase, just it's like calling someone a pencil neck geek.
Okay.
It's just it's just an insult.
Digs
to
for
give
clams.
To yeah, it's just an insult for someone who's you little clam digger. So he's got this whole thing about save the clams. And it's
oh, that's the bit I was missing. It's some environmental bollocks. All right, gotcha.
And it's very fun. It's all good-hearted fun, really. But I thought that was a fantastic main event.
Yeah.
Gives Danielson 3 points. Eddie Kingston languishing on 0. Going to be desperate times for him.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's get into what you thought of this show. That'll be WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one of them above the $5 amount. And that first one here says, first though, Dan, it's the final time you play a team in your conference. The NBA Final, Stanley Cup, World Series, and Super Bowl is the final game of a series of games against the 2 conference champions. I mean, even soccer here, MLS, does this setup.
I know it does, and that's what I mean. It's because your country is too big. It's like imagine saying, I will say, and I will grant you this: the World Cup. When we think of the World Cup, that is referred to as the World Cup Finals.
Yes,
it's not. Like, the final of the match is the final. If it's fine, what does the word final mean to you? Right? Like, also, don't get me started on the World Series. Like,
hey, Canada's involved, aren't they?
Possibly. I don't know.
I think Canada's involved.
Good for them.
It's MasterChef The Professionals is currently on at the moment, which is it's my World Cup.
Good.
But obviously the excitement for MasterChef, Masterheads, as we often call ourselves, chef heads, it's finals week.
Oh, huge.
So we're into what we've got our final 4, but by the final, it'll be the final 3. But we're in finals week. So the final 4 can call themselves MasterChef finalists, but one of them won't be in the actual final.
So they won't be. The word final has lost all meaning. I cannot with this. This is brilliant.
Charles Berg here says, I love a tournament. It adds stakes to a match. And oftentimes character work is better when there's a goal to be achieved. Unfortunately, AEW has a title fetish, and it's a bit exhausting having yet another new belt. Matches have been fun, though.
Yeah, question on that, actually. Are the belts combining and becoming one belt?
Unifying one belt.
So there won't be an ROH World title anymore?
Effectively, yeah. It becomes the modern-day Triple Crown Championship.
So what are the people in ROH fighting for?
The Triple Crown Championship.
So that doesn't become an AEW belt, that becomes an ROH belt. No. I think this is something that they need to explain.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it.
No.
Like, the reason why they have done this is because All Japan did it in the 90s. And if there's one thing that Eddie Kingston loves, it's All Japan in the 1990s. If there's one thing that Tony Khan loves, it's All Japan in the 1990s. Now, I know that because they keep talking about it on commentary as well, talking about the modern-day Triple Crown Champion. I would have just said, you win. And you get the title shot. It's kind of like what the old Full Gear tournament used to be, the World Title Eliminator. And you just, much like the G1, you just win a title shot at the end of it, and you then can go on to face the AEW World Champion. I don't think we needed a belt that, granted, actually removes 2 belts. So to counter Charles's point, it's not adding a belt, it's actually removing 2.
But then my problem with that is, if it's then going to... Because if ROH doesn't have a world championship...
But it does in the form of the Triple Crown Championship.
Well, then tell me who on this list you want to win that and become the ROH World Champion. And I don't mean that in disrespect to ROH, but ROH is AEW's NXT. Yeah. Like, to be polite about it, it's a developmental era at this point. I think, it's not to say it's not booked well, or not done well or whatever. It's just that's what it is. So do you want Swerve Strickland to win that tournament? Do you want Bryan Danielson to win that tournament and then become the ROH World Champion? I guess you could make an argument for that. But in like a nice old, there he is again with the ROH Championship kind of thing. That just feels like a complicated thing. And then it's like, well, is the Continental Classic... Do you only defend the Continental belt in the Continental Classic? Does that mean there's going to be another one and then the belt's not defended? Like,
well, no, because it's not the Continental Classic belt, it's the Triple Crown Championship. So the Triple Crown Championship is a belt that is defended in AEW, ROH, and New Japan.
This is where I go maths woman. This is where I start going like, hang on, what?
And this is why, Dan, I would not have done it.
Yeah,
because I
like the story beat of Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
like I can explain it. But as I explain it, I don't think it makes a whole mess of sense. And if you're already slightly down on the idea of the title belt, it's just going to create more maths woman gifts for you. And that I completely agree with.
I hope they know what I mean by maths woman gift, by the way. My friend thought that was Julia Roberts. It's the woman who looks like this and she goes...
This is great for audio listeners.
And they just love our dulcet tones. They're not really listening to what we're saying.
Yeah, but you're not saying anything, Dan. You're moving your eyes.
That's true. I'm moving my eyes, and then there's the maths, like the trigonometry symbols coming all around. You know the GIF.
Will Campbell here says, with Eddie sitting at 0-2, I'm starting to be resigned to the possibility scenario that Eddie putting his belts on the line was just a creative way of getting them off of him. I disagree with that because I'm when they announced the brackets, I turned to Tempest because we were on the tube together when they were announcing things, and I said, well, there's your final then. It's Eddie versus Moxley. That's your final, and it's in New York. Eddie beats Moxley in New York at World's End.
Well, that's a bit tasty, isn't it? But I mean, like, to your point, Will, when you say a creative way to get them off him, I would much rather that than he just lay them down in the ring and say, I don't want to fight for these, I want to fight for that when it's
like
dead.
They did the Samoa Joe.
There it is.
Yeah.
Like that, this at least, you know, and also if you can tell a compelling story with it, like I said, hoisted on his own petard, and he bets on himself and he loses that bet. That for me is a very creative way of doing it. That puts a little bit of, like, what's the word? Sympathy on Kingston. And
really the way that Tony Khan has booked and presented Ring of Honor, particularly in the last 6 months, like, you know, no disrespect to Eddie Kingston, but it's just like Ring of Honor doesn't feel like it's like, to call it AEW's NXT is fair in one sense because it's kind of sort of their developmental brand, but NXT is like way and above in terms of like effort being put into it.
I agree with that wholesale.
So like Ring of Honor is just this massive afterthought. So then because Samoa Joe just laid down the TV title because he's like, I'm going after the AEW World title. Eddie Kingston's just putting up the ROH title within this Continental Classic that is actually only taking place on, and you know, you can make the, well, this belt will be defended in 3 different companies. Not really though, because ROH doesn't feel like Ring of Honor did 3 years ago.
Can I say something that is going to make people hate me?
Finish my point and then you're more than welcome to. So then it stands to reason, you look at the ticket sales for Final Battle and they're really poor. Because there's only so much Athena can do.
Right.
Like Athena and Billy Starks and Lexi Nair, to her credit, are carrying that promotion on their backs, doing, I would argue, one of the better stories in women's wrestling in North America in 2023. I think it has been fantastic television that should be on such a bigger platform. And it sucks that ticket sales for Final Battle are really bad, but all of the good ticket sales that they've got, the few ticket sales they've got, are for that match. And it's that match that's carrying this. And I think, you know, Samoa Joe vacating the belt, Eddie putting up in this tournament. Yeah, no wonder ticket sales for Final Battle are poor, because Ring of Honor doesn't feel like an important thing right now.
That, this is a sidebar going away from what I was going to say, but the tangent that has made me think about is that this is one of the frustrating things where I'm about to get on my high horse again and start preaching, but the bad faith people will take that and say, well, women's wrestling doesn't draw. And they'll ignore the wider context. And that's why it's so frustrating when you do get something like Captain Marvel or a female-led superhero movie or whatever. They have to draw so above and beyond to get even, or a Wonder Woman to get even an opportunity for a second movie, because that you know, male-led action movie didn't do very well. Give it a sequel, see what happens. Oh, that female one, they don't want to see women in this context. It's all about perception. That gets really frustrating. The thing that was going to make people cross at me was, and this is a genuine question, would ROH be AEW's WWE CW? Or is that too cruel?
No, I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, it's better TV.
What I mean by that is, there are no zombies in ROH.
Yeah, and even then, there was only the zombie in that one week.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, is it better? I suppose it is better TV because WCW was bad.
But
it's not like Ring of Honor is good TV because it's mostly just like squash matches.
Well, the reason I say that is because when I think about ROH, I think about the wrestling channel and I think about the style and the video of it and what it looked like and all that. HD. And now it's like, it's an AEW set, it just has the ROH colours on it. That's where I think of ECW.
Well, yeah. Sorry, 1 second. I'll just drop this again. I was speaking to Claudio Castagnoli the other day.
Yeah.
Picking up, and he kind of made the same point, which was that like he preferred it when they were doing the Universal tapings. They were taping it at Universal Studios, much like TNA used to do back in the day, and that gave Ring of Honor its own feel. Now they just tape it after Collision and after Dynamite, but with ROH branding on it, so it doesn't feel like. And funny enough, that's exactly what happened to WWE CW.
Yeah,
like the second they just started taping it after Raw and SmackDown, particularly after the SmackDown, then it was just like, well, now this just looks like every WWE show. This doesn't have the ECW vibe to it. And I don't think Ring of Honor has that Ring of Honor vibe to it.
That's why current NXT has its charm, and if it goes to bigger venues, I don't know if I find a similar charm. Do you know what I mean? This is a whole other podcast about production values, but yeah.
But anyway, let us know what you thought of the show. WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out more of them later on. Let's get into the main show, which had its opening promos for the C2 competitors. Eddie is the absolute best, but he was not in our first match, which was Claudio Castagnoli versus Brody Lee, both of which are on 3 points each. No, Brody King. That's the second time I've done that. I did it when I was talking to... I did it on the Survivor Series live reactions.
Did you?
I was talking about Mac, we were talking about the league and stuff, and I called him Brody Lee there, and I caught myself doing it. I was like King even, but I caught myself being like Lee, obviously not Lee, King, Brody King.
Yeah, it's
why Vince now wants everyone to have different first names.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
For thick people like me, I'm like, maybe Vince was right on that. Maybe we should always change everyone's name.
That's probably the closest I would put you to Vince McMahon. Everything else is probably not quite the same.
Yeah. But this was a lovely big meaty men match. They just beat the tar out of each other. I love Claudio doing the swing because the crowd weren't expecting him to do the swing, so I thought that was great. Both men kicking out at one. I loved all of that. But then Brody gets the lariat for the win, and they sort of put this out. They didn't extensively say this on commentary because I think particularly because Nigel is a Blackpool Combat Club guy. He was like saying it's the cast, because Brody King's got that cast on his arm. Like, it's not cheating, but that maybe the lariat just had a little bit extra oomph, and that's what put him away. Just got a slight little, I don't know. But really, Brody King is being pushed as the monster brute in this. I'm really looking forward to him versus Garcia.
Oh yeah, the way I described this match was, it was like a proper wrestling match, and I don't mean that to be in the whole real wrestling for real wrestling fans situation. I mean that in this is what I imagine my grandma, who used to watch wrestling back in the day, watched. Right, it was punches, it was strikes, it was pile driver here and there. There was a swing in there, there was some moves, and it was just hard hitting, and it just was wrestling. And that's the highest praise I can possibly give it. It's the wrestling my grandma would have watched. I loved it.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Because as I was watching this match, my thought was, can you imagine just being someone who's just flicking through the channels and just as it's starting, because he came up with Blue League, and the commentators are talking about the Continental Classic and what it means and the various different leagues and stuff. And I was like, if you're just flicking through the channels and you see that, and what you're seeing is this ginormous dude tattooed head to toe, this big Brutus beard and stuff, and this slender but muscular tall dude, and they just batter each other. You're like, I'll stick around and watch this for another 5 minutes before I flick over and see what's on the movie channel.
It's become a bit of a meme since Hangman and Swerve being like, this is the match I'd give to people if they don't watch wrestling to explain why wrestling. Personally, I wouldn't.
I would not.
They'd be grossed out big time. But also the other side of that coin was Raw, the last week's Raw, where a lot of casuals, to use the parlance, probably were tuning in to see Punk, and it was their first. It was WWE's opportunity to showcase how genuinely WWE have been quite good over the past year, especially Raw has been. Broadly a solid show, and this wasn't that, so it wasn't a great advert for those of us who have enjoyed Raw. This is what I would show to people, to be like, this is what wrestling looks like now. It's a great little match. It was competitive, it was entertaining, it was, that looked stiff, and all that looked, the swing was cool to look at. There's this he's swinging that big guy all around. I thought it was great. I really liked it.
And then if you've managed to stick around and you see this following promo, Jon Moxley, god dang, this guy is good.
Good.
He cut this promo about being banged up. He's already hurting from doing this as a career. And now his knee is hurting because he tweaked his knee during the Jay Lethal match, which Jay Lethal then was targeting throughout the match and locking in the figure four and stuff. So it's so now I'm in this tournament and my knee's banged up and my bang's backed up. And I know, what am I going to do? I'll tell you what I'll do, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'll do what I always do when I'm in this situation. I'll wrestle my way out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just this incredible promo that makes this tournament feel like it's the biggest deal on the planet.
Someone on Twitter the other day, when Punk signed with WWE, which, by the way, a week ago.
Yeah.
What a week of the industry. What a year of the industry. Lemon, it's Wednesday. There was someone who was like, what if you're running AEW, what do you do now? And the thing I posted was a still from the West Wing, let Bartlett be Bartlett, right? Which is just do what you do. Just be AEW. And I thought this promo on Dynamite was that.
Yep.
And it was so smart to show it again because it was a brilliant promo. It's kind of what Mox said in there, where it's like, this is what this company was built on, like just wrestling, like just, you know.
Great wrestling. The best wrestlers on the planet doing the best wrestling I've ever seen.
And do it. You know, this is what this tournament, after what has been, I think, objectively, and I think fairly, and in all good faith, a bit of a troubled and down a year for AEW creatively. This is them showing this is the best way they can end this year. You know, this is showing us what it is.
I slightly disagree. I don't think it's been
because you're a shill.
Because obviously, I don't get paid this way.
Yeah.
If I don't get paid if I say anything else, is to say that like I think this has been a better creative year than they had last year. I think my thesis I'm currently running on now is that AEW is still trying to recover from 2022 because 2022 was a disastrous year for AEW, not just with Brawl Out, but just with like everyone getting injured and everyone getting hurt, and that every title had an interim run, and it's just like all of a sudden belts just didn't feel like they meant anything, and it's like they introduced these trio belts and then one day later had to strip them and put them back up into a different tournament and all this sort of stuff, and it's like everything went wrong in 2022, and so all these low ticket sales we see for AEW this year have just been the result of a bad 2022. So 2023 for me has just been the rebuilding year. You built all of it around Max, and he has carried it and has really brought it back up. I don't think it's been their greatest year. It's no 2021 or 2020 or 2020. 2020 was an incredible year for the company, even with the pandemic. But I think it's been a strong year for them. But you're right, I think this is a great way to end off this year. Let's just do wrestling shows.
Maybe the fair way to put it.
Whatever QT Marshall thinks of this company, we'll just put on wrestling shows.
Maybe the fair way to put it is it's not been a banner year. There's been moments of absolute highs, and the highs have been higher. The Iron Man match, All In, just that many people in Wembley was just so impressive, and then the matches within that as well. Osprey and Omega
and Vikingo.
Yeah, like put a pin in Vikingo. But it's not been a banner year.
No.
This is the best way to close out that year.
Absolutely.
And let Bartlett be Bartlett.
Whereas like 2023 has been a banner year for WWE.
Yes. In spite of last week's Raw.
I was going to say in spite of Vince McMahon.
In spite
of Vince taking over the show again.
Yeah.
This has been a banner year for the company. This has been a company that you can just like, your ticket sales are through the roof, and you can carry that over into 2024. And, we'll certainly see what happens off the back of this year, because I mean, like, for example, tonight's show, I should say, has had nearly 2,000 tickets sold within the last week because people are going for Punk.
Yeah.
But Punk's not there. So are those...
Yeah, but have you seen the card?
Well, that's it. It's how you then, like, just show, like, well, even without Punk, look at what you're getting.
Yeah.
It's whether or not those 2,000 people are going to be like, yeah, but I only really want to see that one guy. And if I'm not getting that one guy, then I'm not going to buy my ticket for next year. Or do you convert those people who've only bought it from one guy into paying customers the next time they come to town?
I think it's that one. And I think with this tournament, like, I hadn't watched Dynamite yet before I heard about this Moxley promo to sort of bring us back on track to Collision. Because I heard about this promo and was like, well, I'll have to seek it out then. And I heard about the Roosh and Briscoe match because there's only so many hours in the week. There's only so much wrestling I watch. I tend to watch my shows and occasionally watch.
Catch up where possible.
Yeah.
You have other content to make, Dan. You're a busy boy.
I'm a busy boy. But when you hear, this is what part of what we do is when we love something, we want to shout about it. The Roosh and Briscoe match. What? And this promo was one of them. And it's that same thing of, well, if it's not been a banner year and our attendances are down, what can we do? Great wrestling. What was this company built of? And it's become a meme of like, get the feeling back or whatever after MJF said what he said. You can have the MJF Devil storyline with its sort of like quasi-retribution elements. And that is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can also have this stuff, and this stuff is what's going to get to your point, get those eyes back on the product. And I love the fact that they replayed this Moxley promo here.
We then had Abadon versus Kiera Hogan. These two went hard and went fast.
Pish bash bosh.
It really was. Like, I really like Abadon's finish. Like leg lock DDT thing. I thought that was very nice. And after the match was over, the lights went out and Julia Hart appeared in the ring. And then the lights went out and Julia Hart disappeared. So that sets up a lovely little TBS program.
I thought the angle was good. I liked the fact that Julia didn't seem bothered at all. She was like, oh, you're Morgoth Spoopy? I can appear in the dark. I liked that. 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it was 4 minutes, and you could tell that it was only a 4-minute match because they, didn't
even do picture in picture.
Yeah, and they did 8 minutes worth of wrestling in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they went hard, they went fast. I enjoyed Kiera Hogan's Little Mermaid inspired gear. I thought that was very nice. Cute. But I thought, the Living Dead girl is a gimmick that's, I don't know, man. Like, it's when she first came into the company during the pandemic, I was like, I'm not sure about this. Doesn't feel like AEW because it's so like gimmicky.
It's a sports entertainment gimmick.
Yeah, in a way. And I still have that feeling now, but that's not to take away from Abadon because like she has done so much, like recovering back from the injury that they have had, and has done so much work to get themselves in incredible shape that I've got nothing but respect for Abadon.
No,
and I think this will be a cute little TBS title picture, and I'm not trying to use cute in a derogatory stance. It's because like that's what this was. Like Abadon barely on TV.
Twee.
Yeah, Abadon barely on TV, gets a win, Julia Hart appears, there's a title picture. Like, that's your title program.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real, like, substance to it. It's just like, that is a little TBS program.
The gimmick isn't to my taste. The work is.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Marvez interviewed Samoa Joe, who is furious about MJF taking the tag match for Dynamite. And Roderick Strong and co. roll in, and it says, hey, look, I know that you tried to break my neck earlier this year, but you're friends with Max and you're friends with Adam, so therefore by proxy I'm friends with you too. But hey, you shouldn't be teaming with Max because Max is the devil and this is a way for you to get it all set up. And Samoa Joe literally goes
Samoa Joe did the walkaway spot in a promo.
Yeah. It's awesome. We got a video promo for Sting's final match, and then we got, I know you said this in the office earlier, but I do slightly concur, this was my match of the night. And I loved this match in the tournament. Daniel Garcia versus Andrade El Idolo. You had Daddy Magic on commentary. You can't have seconds at ringside, so CJ Perry was not there. She come down to the ring and sort of stood by the.
She hovered,
but she didn't come down to the ring.
Like me at a Christmas buffet, wearing a very similar outfit.
But they really did a great job of putting Andrade over and like what a force he can be in this tournament because like, hey, he's done this. He did the best of the Super Juniors and then was the youngest competitor ever in a G1.
Yeah, they really put that over.
Really putting that over during his entrance. But I loved Danny's story in this. Because you had Daddy Magic on commentary, and Daddy Magic was there being like, look, I don't like the dancing. And like, Nigel, when you were ROH World Champion, did you dance? And Nigel was like, oh, no, I never did any dancing. I was like, yeah, and of course you didn't, because you don't dance. You've got to be serious. So I'm trying to get him to be serious in this competition, in this tournament. And Danny Garcia was. And he was being the professional wrestler that he is. This was proper like Daniel Garcia. He would put his arms up and the crowd would chant, but he wasn't going to the hip-popping dance movements. And because of that, he put up such a good fight against Andrade and nearly had the match won. To the point where he locked in the Dragon Taper, but slightly slipped out of it, and that allowed Andrade to take over, hit the Hamlock DDT to win. And Daddy Magic on commentary was like, he had him. He had him. Like a proper, like, disappointed trainer. He had him. And I love this story. That Daniel Garcia has all of the tools, but the two things that are holding him back are his love of dancing and his submission finish. This submission finish that he beat Bryan Danielson with has led to 2 losses for him. Because he locked it in on MJF, leant too far back into it, and MJF was allowed to transition that into the Salt of the Earth and get the win. Here, he leant too far back into it, slipped out of it, and Andrade hit him with a Hammerlock DDT. That is a great little detail for what is supposed to be your finish. The move you beat Bryan Danielson with is now your Achilles heel.
Yeah.
That's so good.
There was a lot of that in this match that I really liked. I like when you say he lifted his arms up to do the move, the dance. Andrade went, look at this guy. And it was like, it was using it and being clever, which I really appreciated. That was a nice little touch. The whole business about being, we're focused too much on the dancing kind of thing. And I do agree with it. There's the side of the coin where I'm like, you can be silly, but get the business done. There's room for both, right? Kurt Angle, Kofi Kingston in certain ways, being a silly person who then backs it up with the moves in the ring. So I don't want to lose that stuff. I don't want this to be the program where they just get rid of Danny Garcia in that way. But I did like the argument of grandstanding and the argument of too much whatever. There was even a moment in this where Andrade's going for the three amigos, right? And he hits two of the amigos and then stops to do this to, tribute to Eddie. And that's how Garcia gets out of it. Like, he gets out of it because he was being grandstanding. And then, Andrade hits the three amigos again. And it's like, well, I just didn't be... And throughout the three amigos that second time, Garcia is hitting him in the kidneys. And that's something that I really loved throughout this match, by the way. He's hitting him in the kidneys, but Andrade is just strong enough to be able to kind of take it and do the three amigos. There was a moment as well where Garcia's in the corner and he's trying to stop it, but he's like reaching because he's a bit knackered, but he still wants to put up the fight kind of thing. That was listed throughout it. I thought it was a really good little bit of character performance. And to the point of when we look at the tournament bracket, you need people to take losses. He's one of them, but you can tell stories within those losses.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah,
which I don't think they're doing so much with Lethal and Briscoe on the other side, which is why I think the Blue League feels slightly stronger as it currently stands. Although like the A League is star-studded, the Blue League feels. I'm enjoying the Blue League more currently.
The Blue League is stronger because it's ours on Collision.
But I'm also on Dynamite.
Yeah, that's fair. You get both. I get the one. It's like, but this is I've only got SmackDown on Sky One. So like,
to your point though, like I agree with the Garcia stuff, but I think that can be part of the character development of like, because that's the whole thing with Daddy Magic is that Daniel Garcia wants to dance. Daddy Magic doesn't want him to dance. There's a nice middle.
Yes.
Where you dance, but you still win.
That's it. I think, and I like that they're building to that.
We then got a video recap of the Gold League, which showed you highlights of the matches, who won, what the standings are, with promos interspersed. And it was at that point I wrote in all caps, I effing love this
That's
league.
what I wrote down. I paused it to look at the table, and this is brilliant. Yeah.
Just wrote in all caps. Like, the video packs finished, I was like, I love this league. Yeah. I love this. I love the Classic. It's great. We got a video recap of Wardlow's squash of AR Fox, and Willie Mack got a promo saying he would like a match with Wardlow next week.
He did.
What we next got, it's a nice bit of sort of like kayfabe booking, kayfabe storytelling on TV. These were, I can't remember what the word they used.
Standby matches.
Standby matches, because you don't know how long tournament matches are going to run, because they've all got 20-minute time limits. So these were standby matches that were put on by Tony Khan, just in case before we get to the final match. I like it. It's just a little bit of like kayfabe world building.
Yeah,
I like it.
On the world building front, I agree with you. There are sort of holes in this for me where it's like, well, every match has a time limit. It's not just like, and you announce that time limit as you come to because they each come down to the ring, so you don't have standby matches week to week. Like, but it's that other thing of like these guys in the C2 aren't wrestling outside of their normal weekly wrestling agenda, but they're putting it over like this is harder. Yeah. So there's something in the kind of, it's not world building as much as it's tournament building. And I respect where it's coming from. I did not like the wording of it though, and we'll save that for when we get to the match.
So we had the Kingdom versus the Iron Savages. It went about as long as the women's match did. It was fun and it was short.
This match bosh.
Roddy, after the match, dived into the ring to hit his jumping knee strike. I really love it. Because then he falls down and he leaps back out the ring, but in doing so falls into his chair and stuff. And you're looking at this show that you just had this war between Danny Garcia and Andrade. Like up next, you've got Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston. And then you've got this absolute silly WrestleBolics here with Roddy being like, Samoa! Joe.
I loved the diving into the ring and falling into his chair. All that stuff's great. I don't love the screaming. It's like doing the joke. It worked once, so we're going to do it every single week. And he shouted Samoa, he shouted Dasher, he shouted ass. I'm like, oh, come on. Like for me, it stopped working. But the diving into the ring, doing the thing, I'm like, oh man, love that. Love that.
I agree. It is over.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's one of those things where I have to just go, look, it ain't for me all the time. But when he did Adam, the crowd joined in.
Yeah.
So it is...
Everyone gets to do it when it comes to their town.
It is over. Lexi interviewed Ethan Page, who said that he is refocused and getting wins on ROH. Ben points out that they're going to be in Canada next week, and if he wants to be the king of Canada, he's going to have to beat Kenny Omega in a singles match. Kenny Omega wrestling a singles match.
Goodness me.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
Doesn't it piss
on Collision.
Doesn't it piss you off that that's a surprising thing that we're getting? Yeah. Like, no, why am I sat here in December 2023 being like, oh, I'm getting a Kenny Omega match on TV?
Yeah.
Why don't I get this more?
Yeah.
Like, it's Kenny Omega. Why am I looking at Kenny Omega's win-loss record for 2023 being like, why haven't you had that many matches? Why am I looking at the Young Bucks being like, why are you not on TV a lot? It's frankly annoying. We got a video recap of Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Martinez. And then we got House of Black versus Matt Sydal and Christopher Daniels.
One of the most iconic tag teams of all time, they kept saying on commentary.
Well, former ROH tag team champions.
Great.
Yeah.
They wrestled, what, like 20 matches each? I mean, it was them constantly putting over that this is one of the most iconic tag teams of all time. They're great, but I was like, is it?
Well, it's living legend in Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
Matt Sydal, who was like, he was doing these moves, and every now
that was a nice touch they said on commentary.
When he was doing all of these moves that are commonplace now, they were like, yeah, he invented that.
Yeah, that's something they said in the commentary that I really was like, yeah, that's true. He was doing this before it became like
every move.
One of the most iconic tag teams of all time.
No, no, it's not the Dudley Boys.
There we go.
But it is Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, and you love that.
And here's my first note. When can we get Daniels' TNA theme back? We have Jarrett's. Like, why can't we get Dale?
Cages.
Right? Yeah. Why can't we get Dale Oliver on the phone and be like, can we have Christopher Daniels ripoff of Marilyn Manson? It's probably why you don't have it, because it's a ripoff of Marilyn Manson, I guess. But even so, fulfill my TNA Also, Daniels got to make it to Collision with no Punk there. Daniels is allowed to through the door at Collision. I then wrote, this match is way better than it needs to be.
Yeah,
because this match was about putting the House of Black over.
Yeah.
And it did do that. They got the win, and it looked awesome. But man, this match was really, really good, and it didn't need to be this good.
Yeah, kind of what I mean by you don't need to put them over as one of the best of all time. They'll just deliver a good match, and you can say that they were ROH tag champs or whatever. It just was a surprise. And then also are they calling it a black mass? I can't remember if they call it. They just kept calling it's called the end. I love that move.
It's the best finish.
I love a kick to the head. Yeah, I don't in real life, but in my wrestling. Yeah.
After the match, the lights went out, but it was FTR that came down to the ring. I thought that was a cute little touch. And Malachi Black got a microphone and said, look, the offer's still there. Do you want to join our group? Because no one else in the locker room likes you. No one else in the locker room has your back, but we can have your back, and we can do this. And he throws the microphone down to Dax Harwood. And Dax Harwood looks at Malachi, and he looks at Buddy Matthews, and he just slightly takes his eye off the ball, because he did not learn from the 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And Master Tetsu tells you quite clearly, never take your eyes off your enemy.
I haven't seen it.
If he'd have just rewatched that movie in the last, couple of years, he'd have remembered that. He'd have also remembered that wise men say, forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for a late pizza.
These lines would kill if I'd seen the movie.
There's people in the chat really enjoy it.
Oh, they love it, I'm sure.
Anyway, so Dax lowered his eyes, so Buddy Matthews was like, needed the face. And he just, and they laid them out. And he held, Buddy Matthews was there holding Dax, watching Cash get hit with the end. And then Malachi Black was coming to promo like, no one's coming to save you. Look, no one is coming to save
Billy
you.
No Mates.
You are Charlie No Chums out here. And he gives Dax the end as well. I thought this was a fine little wrestling angle.
Yeah, loved it.
Renee interviewed Timeless Toni, and this promo is great for a multitude of reasons. I run a bit hot and cold on the Toni Storm character. Some weeks I love it, some weeks it's a bit much for me. But this promo is definitely worth it just to watch Renee Paquette try not to laugh.
Yeah.
She's doing her own try not to laugh challenge because she basically said, Sky Blue, you're only famous for your ass. And Renee just goes,
but she didn't say ass, she said the word bottom. And that's a very funny word.
It is and she's like, do you want to be spooky? I could be spooky too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. I loved that bit.
And Renee nearly laughs again. What did she call her title belts?
I don't know. She did the little tap on it.
She did, and she gave it a word, like an old-timey Hollywood word, and that made her nearly laugh again. And they set up a match with Sky Blue for next week, and Sky Blue had a return promo after the ad break where she said, I accept your challenge, and I'm going to come, and I'm going to be up there with my chin up, my tits out, and a shoe up your ass.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was very, very good. Unsurprisingly, went a little bit viral the following day.
Of course it did.
Because the internet's going to be the
man.
Internet. We got a video promo for Christian versus Adam Copeland.
I say that there's a little bit of side eye on that, and there's a reason for it. But also, I wasn't thirsting over Randy Orton, beefcake Randy Orton saying "Daddy's home." I'll be honest, we're all guilty of it.
We got a video promo for Christian Cage versus Adam Copeland, which is taking place this week in Canada.
Can I have a quick one about that?
Go for it.
Because this was great. This video package was brilliant. Christian Cage is an MVP. I mean, we've been saying that for a long time now. But he's also an absolute face, as far as I'm concerned. In this. First of all, hating young people, which I love. But also, I get that, like, objectively speaking, he's a heel, and in his actions that he's a heel. But what he was saying about 3 years of, like, scratching the surf, scratching away and clawing and making it... They even showed footage of him climbing ladders within that. Christian Cage has had to do everything on his own. There was even a JR clip on a podcast recently where JR said in no uncertain terms, Christian was generic and Edge was 6'4". Christian's 6'1", by the way. But he's like, Edge is 6'4" with a long blonde hair. He's got the look. That's what turns people's heads when you're walking through an airport. So that's why he was the star and Christian never made it. JR obviously did go on to say as well that Christian has made so much incredible work, and that's the reason he's one of the best heels in the game. So he absolutely gave him his flowers. But I'm listening to this and I'm like, yeah, you went to TNA, you forced your way into the world title scene there, you got the return, and because of whatever reason, it never, you were never given... You were Todd Grisham'd into oblivion.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's mostly because Vince got pissy that his return leaked online, and so changed the story.
Right.
And then Christian just became the ECW guy.
But within that, he still, Scratch and Claw did it, left because of the injury, found his way back.
Only won the world title because Edge retired.
Made his massive return at the Royal Rumble and went, well, you don't want to sign me to a contract, so I'm off to the competition. And in the competition, has built himself to be one of the people who I tune in for every week.
On that point, went to the competition where he was, given, arguably, too big of an intro because they, Hall of Fame worthy signing.
Tony Khan's lost it. That was one of the first announcements that was underwhelming.
That was one of his first underwhelming announcements. So Christian Cage was then fighting from the bottom and has scratched and clawed his way to this position.
And here comes Adam Copeland, the Hall of Famer, the one who's always got his flowers, the one who got the massive... Christian didn't get a pop at the Royal Rumble because he was in the Thunderdome, but he got 2 returns at the Royal Rumble, and he WrestleMania main event and all of this other stuff.
Multiple times over. And he was, hang on, that looks like fun. I'm going to go there and have fun with Uncle Jay. Big heel. Do you know what I mean? This is a really compelling story, and the alignments are wrong. Boo that man! I often find myself in
he can jet Nick Wayne. That's
in front of his mom.
That guy's a bad guy. Am I Nigel McGuinness now?
No, I don't think you are.
Yeah,
because I've always had this, certainly the last couple of years with Adam Copeland, during the Judgment Day storyline, I'm like, I don't like Edge in this story because Edge just keeps winning.
Yeah,
Edge's story with the Judgment Day was he won and he won and he won and he won. He lost once because he let himself lose.
Yeah.
And then he
agreed to quit.
He agreed to quit, came back in the Royal Rumble, eliminated all of Judgment Day, then beat Judgment Day at Elimination Chamber, and then beat Judgment Day again at WrestleMania. He was like, I'm the victor, I've overcome the odds. What odds? What have you overcome? You're winning all the time?
Yeah.
With the help of Russell Crowe, no less.
I hope Christian batters the living daylights out of him or gets Luchasaurus to do it, Kill Switch to do it for him, and then it just moves on.
Yep. I am fully supporting Christian this coming Wednesday. I'm going to be their little Christian Coalition sign. I mean, not my microphone. I'll be there, Captain Charisma.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
singing your off-brand Evanescence theme.
And then our last match we actually get to talk about is El Hijo del Vikingo versus Dan Layton, who accidentally dropped during the ad break, and they replayed it later, that Vikingo is part of the AEW roster.
Yeah, so this is where I was like, we're talking about Vikingo versus Omega. Do you remember when he was a draw? Do you remember when he was treated as this massive attraction? Now he's in a standby match, and they drop it during the commercial that he's in the AEW roster.
Yeah.
And he's the AAA Mega Champion.
And I don't think he is on the AEW roster.
Imagine if when Kenny Omega was doing the belt collector thing, he went over to Impact and they just sort of put him in a quick standby match in the opening segment.
Yeah, because he was the Impact World Champion.
Well, no, because he was the AEW World Champion.
I see your point. Yeah.
Right. This is the AAA World Champion. and he's just in a throwaway standby match. That got on my nerves a bit.
You can tell that the relationship between AEW
You
and
can.
AAA is a bit frosty at the
You
moment.
can. Now,
Conan will be thrilled.
To give it its due, the match was great. That 6:30 looks like it sucks to take, but so impressive. And I'm a big fan of Kip Sabian. I think he's got a great look, and I think I think it's nice to see him getting a little push here, and he's doing some great stuff offline as well. He said he'd come on the podcast.
I know.
His DMs are open, so
Yeah.
we should get him. I mean, we probably can't be on the same podcast because the world will implode.
Well, yeah, like, Doc Brown has laid it out quite, you can't meet your future or past self.
If we're in the, did you see the side by side I put up?
Yes.
We are identical.
Yeah.
In the right light. He's much more in better shape than me.
Yeah.
I'm Kip Sabian from an alternate universe where I prefer. What Kip Sabian is me in an alternate universe where I prefer Jim to the Chips.
I was chatting to someone who used to do a lot of promoting for British wrestling, and he was talking about the Twitter interactions that you've got, and he just told me, he said, "Do they look alike?" Because he used to book Kip back in the day when Kip did not look like me. Didn't look like how Kip looks like now. So like, do they look alike? It's just I don't quite see it. And so I showed him your comparison. He went, "Oh yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Like, they look identical."
Yeah, he's like my big brother kind of thing. Like, it looks more like me than my brothers do, which is weird. But yeah, it was a good match. It was a really good match.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. Vikingo is insane.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it'll be one of those deals that should he get signed to AEW proper, that is when the Vikingo push will begin. Although I thought Ibu of the Wrestle Purists had a really interesting tweet kind of talking about, like, not using Vikingo as the example here, but sort of just using this general idea, this sort of like, we're kind of always excited of seeing young talent get signed to the major companies, getting signed to WWE, getting signed to AEW. But it also means then they don't get to spend 10 years on the indies. And the best example you can give for this is Will. Because Will did not get signed by WWE. He did not get signed by TNA when TNA was, he didn't get signed by Ring of Honor. He didn't get signed by this, that, and the other. He went to New Japan and continued to just do work on the indies. So it got to a point when his New Japan contract was coming up to an end that he was like, well, I'm now worth this much. And a really good comparison that someone gave us, like, could you imagine what would have happened if Pete Dunne had not signed with WWE when he did, at like the young age that he was, and actually just spent the last 7 years just being the best wrestler on the independent scene? He could be commanding a huge price tag for himself, as opposed to sign with WWE at an early age for not a great amount of money, and has just been in the WWE system for a few years. Tyler Bates, another one. Like, Tyler Bates just like,
Tyler Bates is a better example.
Tyler Bates is just like, and a guy who was just like signed at 19. Like, he was 19 years old when he signed, and he's now 28.
Yeah,
and has done pretty much nothing. It's like 27. He's done pretty much nothing in his WWE run at all. Handful of matches, like big level matches in NXT, but that is really about it. He could have spent those last 7 years, last 8 years on the independent circuit, doing Rev Pro, doing Progress, going across to America and doing stuff there, going to Japan, doing stuff there. And now then AEW and WWE will be arguing over and fighting over who's going to be the people to sign them. Well, and I think the point I was going to make with Vikingo is, like, if the option comes, if I'm Vikingo, I was like, at this young age, maybe I'll just continue working the indies, and then I'll wait for them to come and like desperately want me.
It's a luxury that we have now with the wrestling industry the way it is, like, that we didn't have for a while, to be very clear. Because there was a period of time where the indie scene was sort of just there. And I think the reason we're so desperate for there to be a healthy industry, the reason the competition is good, is because it allows for interest in the product and the boom period to have a ripple effect kind of thing, and give people opportunity like that, whereas they didn't for a while. Remember when I saw a tweet, and I'm so sorry to keep bringing him up on this show, but someone was talking about why people are so... They didn't get why people were so obsessed with Punk, or why Punk was a big deal. They just didn't understand. And I think a large part of it was because they're used to wrestling now, especially if they're a new wrestling fan who came for the past few years. When Punk was there, and Punk and Danielson having a match at
Over the Limit.
Yeah, we're main evented by John Laurinaitis. They just delivered an ROH match. And it's like, we didn't see that all the time.
Nope.
And he was saying the things that we were all thinking. And he was, he left to an independent scene that wasn't the way it is now. He didn't have a secondary company that he could have gone to. He didn't know that he was going to be able to command all of these things. He just walked away, and we never thought we'd see him again. So when we saw him again in AEW, it was genuine. Like, there's a reason, I bully him for it a bit, but there's a reason Ollie got so emotional. It's the same reason I got emotional when the Hardys came back to WWE. Like, he represented something at a time that is so different to the one now. So I never want us to take for granted. It's why I reject the tribalism. It's why I really fight against it, because we are so lucky to have two major promotions in America and to have New Japan continually managing to rebuild itself when it loses its big stars to those companies. It's why it's great that we have, the working relationships between the Mexican brands and the American brands. Like, this is great. It's good. It's a good thing.
It's a very, very healthy landscape. The Brit Wrestling would have been healthy if they hadn't done NXT UK, but
yes,
that's,
it's not.
But Pete Dunne told me I'm wrong on that one. So
Did he?
Well, not me personally, but it was like when people were saying, the NXT UK is trying to kill the Brit Rest scene, right? And he was like, no, it's not. It's trying to help it. How did that work out for you?
The famously dead Brit Rest scene.
Yeah.
Where there are no shows happening at the moment.
Well, that's because it's had to spend the last 7 years building itself back up, because NXT UK came in, gutted the scene, and no one went to shows anymore because all of the top stars in the British independent scene got signed to WWE. So the British independent scene has had to spend the last 7 years building up all of these new stars that people are now paying money to go and see.
Like New Japan.
And they've done an incredible job in doing so. But it didn't need to have done that. It only did that because WWE came in and killed it because it was getting too big.
Do a deep dive.
I'd love to. It's just that no one will watch that video.
I will. We'll do one for me.
Because no one cares.
That could be your Christmas present.
It's a topic that I'm quite passionate about, but no one else particularly cares about. I mean, sure, there are like some other British wrestling fans who are also passionate about this, but so, five views on a video is not going to make us a lot of money.
Just do it for the love of the sport. If you care that much.
And then our main event was Bryan Danielson. Oh, actually, I'll ask a couple of things. Lexi Nair interviewed Keith Lee to set up a match with Shane Taylor at Final Battle. And Lexi was also trying to interview CJ Perry, but Miro walked up to try and storm into Andrade's wrestling locker room. But CJ stopped him and said something like, look, there's still anything between us. But if I mean anything to you, don't touch my clients. And Miro was like, I don't have a god. He has deserted me. But maybe. And it was like, stroked her hair and stuff and said, I give you my words. I won't lay a hand on your clients.
Did he say something about, like, if I had you, I would be in this tournament or something? He said something about that.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, you said you didn't want her. So, like, it was an interesting little interaction.
Maybe that's the duality of man.
Wow.
Is that I don't want this woman by my side, but she does present me with good opportunities. So maybe I made a mistake. Although, if reports are to be believed, it's for other reasons he's not in the tournament.
What are they? Tell me about that.
No, it's fine. It's so the reports of it are
the rumor and scuttlebutt.
Yeah, the rumor and scuttlebutt, it should be said, is hearsay perhaps, is that, like, Brian Alvarez said this on Wrestling Observer Radio. I was like, why isn't he in the tournament? He's like, well, because they don't want to pin Miro. And then Dave came in and said, well, it's because they don't want to ask to pin Miro.
Good God.
Because Miro has had lots of creative issues with AEW where they keep presenting him ideas, and whenever parts of those ideas include him losing matches, he says no.
Interesting.
So it's like, well, you can't put him in the tournament because you have to lose sometimes. Yeah. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We're going to give some shout outs to our Patreon backers over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. We have got something very special coming out this week on Patreon. I will just say that for now, but we're going to be doing be announced on Friday. But something very, very cool that we're very, very excited about. But
do I know what it is?
I think you do, but I'll tell you off air. But yeah, we're going to be releasing that this coming Friday. We're very, very excited about it. If you're one of our $25 and above Patreon Pledgehammers, you get your name read out on this show like these fine folk. The $100 man, CD Horver.
The Mayor of Painesville, Dan.
Big Jiggy, Josh Martin.
Double L, Liam Leonard.
The Matt Man, Matthew Allen.
Abominable, Michael Abbott.
Ryan, Disco Stewart.
Thomas, the Prize Hooker, Solar Zeno.
Where there's a Will Campbell.
The Machine Gun, Alex Anderson.
The Roller Coaster, Robert Acosta.
The Black Plague, Butch Rosser.
Thank you all so much for your support. That is your Hall of Fame class for the 4th of December, 2023. Can you believe that it is December 2023? says slowly to get to
the thing that Toni called the belt was a huckleberry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you to our wonderful moderating team. Tank the Frank here says, I like where Action Andrade is right now. He beat Jericho because Jericho didn't take him seriously, not because he was a better wrestler. The win allowed him to go from dark to being part of a fun trio that beat the Hardys and have a great trios title match. So that's just in reference to, because I often sort of make fun a little bit of what I would call the Jericho rub, which is like, hey, look, I put that kid over.
Where is he now?
Did you though, Chris?
Mm.
How about that Takeshita fella, eh?
Oh, Jesus.
It made sense for me to beat him. Did it, Chris? I'd argue that it didn't. We have got an unknown username, so please do let our moderators know, because it is a Streamlabs issue, and they say it'd be refreshing to get Kenny in singles action against Ethan Page to set up the real best wrestler from Canada match between America and Speedball Mike Bailey in the future. This was a good show, but I don't know if Julia can miss Abadon. Also, Samoa!
There it is, it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if she'll have to try and miss her. See
Yeah.
what happens. Golden Knight 84 says, hey, Prof and Luke, just a note to Dan to say, I agree wholeheartedly with your take on tribalism on Twitter, and thanks for replying. Hopefully my point didn't go too far over your head. Love the pod and the WrestleTalk team. Merry Christmas, lads.
Merry Christmas to you.
Absolutely. Trenton Welsh says, love you guys. Dan is due a Survival Series win.
That'll be my... That's like on my Triple Crown. My Grand Slam. I'm getting there, bit by bit.
Thoughts on Sean Spears as the Devil? I think it might be slightly underwhelming.
Yes. What would you say if it was Ali?
Mustafa
Ali. Or
well, yes. Because it'll probably be done after that, because I think it's December 15th that most people's non-compete is over.
do you think it'll happen at World's End?
Yeah, I think it's World's End. I think the final shot of the AEW calendar year is the reveal of who the Devil is, and that's your big then story for 2024. So yeah, I wouldn't be against it, because I really like Mustafa Ali. When the Devil story first started, I was like, potential options you've got is like, it's Adam Cole, it's the Kingdom, it's Kyle O'Reilly making his return, it's one of the ex-WWE guys, particularly like if it's Mustafa Ali, which would actually be funny, like with everyone's talking about Retribution.
It's just thinking of the hacking things and the like the way that it's functionally working in universe. Like.
Yeah, my current pitch, my current running theory is that it's Britt Baker.
Goodness.
So it's Britt Baker, and 2 of the 4 are Sammy Guevara and Jack Perry.
Have you ever seen The Da Vinci Code?
Yes, but not really.
I love The Da Vinci Code. It's one of my favorite books, unironically.
He said happily.
Yeah, I'll stand by it. I'm an arbiter of taste. But
my Dan Brown mocking.
Oh look, they're not all great,
said the tall man.
No, what is the common? Oh, I see what you're doing. I see. There's the common phrase where it's like incredibly handsome and quite sexy Harvard professor who looks a little bit like me. If you check out my author cover. No, in the film The Da Vinci Code, Ian McKellen is doing the bit about the Last Supper and how actually it's like, who's that next to Jesus? And it's like, I'm sorry, I don't remember the Bible. One of the others. And he's like, no, it's Mary Magdalene. And it's like,
it's Britt Baker.
It's Britt Baker. But this is my one. It's like, look closer. And it's like, and what he says this line, which is always in my head, which is where he goes like, the soft face, the red hair, and just the hint of a bosom. And if the argument has been this whole time that the people who are playing the characters are in these segments, I have you with the clips of the devil appearing going, if you look at the picture of the devil, just a hint of a bosom.
A hint of a bosom.
Yeah.
So here's my running theory. That's Britt Baker, and it's a 4 pillars thing.
Right.
And it's going to eventually lead to MJF having to team with Darby Allin. A man he was
against Britt Baker?
Oh, no, against Sammy and Jack.
What's Britt Baker got to do with them?
Well, she's the leader of it. She's the mastermind of this whole thing. It's why she's not been on TV all year. And she is trying to drive
That's just because they don't do the women division.
Well, there's that, obviously. She's trying to drive a wedge between Max and Adam Cole because... that's the power couple dynamic. Right. She's trying to steal Adam Cole away. Maybe Cole is involved. I don't know.
Interesting.
But the only reason I thought of this is because all 3 of them liked a tweet that Max posted and someone reposted criticizing him. And all 3 of them doing it, I was like, that's sus. It's them.
That's a very nice little bit of metagaming.
And Britt Baker putting up that tweet being like, I've not had any promo time this year. Or have I?
Ah.
As the Devil's got some promos.
Look, I mean, I like it. You've convinced me.
I'm just saying.
It's a good working theory.
Just saying, when everyone, like, you know, I can't put it down as my big 2024 prediction when we do our 2024 predictions videos because I think the reveal will happen before then, but that's my current working theory.
If it happens, I'm on the World's End review on New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I will make Ollie Davis make Hint of a Bosom on the thumbnail.
And Urkto here said, the C2 has been amazing so far. I think based on Eddie's promo after the Bryan match that he will semi-squash Claudio in under 10 minutes, making Claudio pissed off, and he takes out on Bryan and beats him. Also want to say that Abadon goes by they, not she. I corrected myself. I did say she, and then I was like, no, that's wrong.
You did.
So I then corrected myself afterwards. But yes, thank you for that. I don't mind that either, actually. Like, you beat Claudio, and Claudio kind of takes that aggression out then on Danielson.
Yeah.
And that almost takes Danielson out of the running then.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do press the subscribe button if you've made it this far and you haven't already. We've just passed 82,000 subs on this channel, by the way, which means we're now close to our 85,000 sub mark when we'll do another 10-hour live stream.
Just in time for Royal Rumble season.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
we're
nice.
actually close to doing another Royal Rumble randomizer.
Let's make it happen.
And then I thought, what if we do it as a live show?
Yeah, big time.
Like, wouldn't that be fun?
What?
We'll do it as a live show. We'll do it as a live stream, live show.
Oh, I thought you just meant, I was like, we did it live. What are you talking about? Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that idea just popped into my head. I haven't cleared it with anyone, but like, I think the idea is there.
Hey.
It'll be a fun time.
Tell your friends. Let's make it happen before Rumble season.
So, do press the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this episode, and we will see you tomorrow. Myself and Dan Layton will be back tomorrow to review Monday Night Raw, which does not have any Punk, but does have
Oh my god.
Seth Rollins versus Jey Uso for
Drew
the world
McIntyre
title.
versus Sami Zayn.
You've got Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler.
All right. You got the Creed brothers taking on the Judgment Day for the tag titles.
Is that on that show?
That's on that show.
Really?
DIY versus Imperium in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Come on.
I'm very excited for the Creed brothers winning those tag belts.
That's what I'm talking about.
So we'll be reviewing that show tomorrow here on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. Until then, I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been the Professor Dan Layton. Jam that jam. Sorry, back again. The poll.
The poll.
Yeah, sorry, the poll.
I was almost picking my nose.
85% thumbs up.
What happens if we don't do the poll?
Nothing really.
Oh, it's just for records.
Yeah, it's just for records. You know,
Okay.
it's for funsies.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
85% thumbs up, mid 10%. That is a strong thumbs up reaction to this show.
It's a good show.
It's a good show.
It's a good show. Bye.
Jam that jam.